Hi guys, American homeowners. The FBI has been warning about a type of real estate fraud called title theft, and your equity is the target. With just a forged signature, your ownership can be transferred out of your name, and without protection in place, you're left with an emotional and financial nightmare. That is why we partner with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim and protect yourself. Use promo code Nancy at HometitleLock.com to get a free title history report plus a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if you're a victim of fraud, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Don't be a victim. Protect your home equity today. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code Nancy, or just use the link below. And good luck. What you're seeing now is a post made by Katie's sister.
A red, brown stain sat on a windowsill for 140 days before anyone thought to test it. Not because it wasn't visible. It was visible in photographs taken the very first night. It sat there through winter, through freezing temperatures, through 5 months of exposure, untouched, until a prosecutor decided it mattered. Here's the visual you need to hold on to for the rest of this story.
I didn't wake up again until a little after 11 o'clock. And that was to my brother coming in the room being like, hey, Warren's trying to get a hold of you. Warren gets on the phone and he's just like, hey man, he was like, hey, have you talked to Nolan? Anything else? I was like, no, I haven't talked to him, man. He was with that girl last time I knew. And he was like, okay. He was like, man, we can't get a hold of him. We don't know where he's at. And I was like, man, it's Nolan. He's probably just out somewhere with that girl. Like, get a hold.
A house with a single open window, and on the shingles beneath it, dried droplets of something reddish-brown, trailing downward like a question mark written in blood. That image sat in an evidence file for months. Nobody swabbed it. Nobody screened it. It just sat there waiting. Before we go deeper into what the evidence actually shows, make sure you're subscribed to Shadow Jury Archives. Because we don't just cover the story, we follow the facts. This is a case built on a timeline, a single afternoon, a house, a window, and a set of stains that were supposed to tell investigators exactly what happened inside those walls. But when the defense got its turn with the state's forensic chemist, the story of that timeline started to fracture. Not because the science was wrong, but because so much of it was never done at all. The chemist who took the stand had processed the scene twice.
That girl, the mysterious Katie, remember nobody who knew who she was, but then later, Dave Mack, do we learn that one of the guys on the boat had been texting with her and knew full well who it was? Where did the name Katie come from?
Katie was known to at least one person in the group, and that leads you to believe there were certainly more. There were a number of comments publicly made by friends of Nolan that backtracking, claiming they didn't know who Katie was, had never seen her before, and then you find out, yeah, well, not only did they...
Once in the immediate aftermath, in the dead of winter. And once again, 5 months later in June, when someone decided the case needed more. On that second visit, investigators pulled shingles directly off the house, shingles that had spent an entire winter exposed to snow, to freezing rain, to sun. And when the chemist opened those envelopes back at the lab, something had changed. The stains that were once a clear red-brown had gone dark. Degraded. And degraded evidence, she admitted under oath, is evidence you handle carefully, because you might only get one shot at testing what's left. So she made a choice. She ran preliminary screening tests on the recovered shingle stains, but she declined to run confirmatory testing.
Well, Nancy, I got to call it like I see it. I reviewed this report in detail. I don't think it puts any points on the board. I don't think it moves the needle. If anything, I think it shows everyone that has opinions out there how difficult it is to find reliable information. Because one thing I will have to say about this report, although I didn't find it particularly useful, is that it sourced all of its information, and unlike a Netflix documentary where people will form opinions on second and third hand information, it would say, this person said this, but this person didn't witness it firsthand. This person repeated what someone else said. Or it said, this person made this statement on Facebook. I mean, even the digital information, the photos, those aren't reliable because number one, like they say, you can't corroborate the timestamp. It could be the timestamp could be when the photo was screenshot versus taken, or even the last one we looked at, they're saying they can't say it was reliable because it could have been enhanced, with the color manipulated. So I think it just goes to show how difficult it is to find any real reliable information on this case.
The chemistry, she explained, needed to be preserved. Once you consume a sample confirming what you already screened for, you can't go back and test it again for anything else. It was a defensible call in a lab, but in a courtroom, it became something else entirely. A gap.
I got 1 hour tonight, and you just wasted almost 1 minute of it. Every investigation starts somewhere. Let me just understand something. You have tried a lot of cases, right? That's what I was told.
A ton, and I won most of them.
Nothing like tooting your own horn. Bonk, bonk. That said, every investigation starts somewhere. Yes, I don't have the timestamp, but I can get the timestamp because I know about the photo. You start somewhere, and then you start digging, and then you find out what time it was taken. Then you find out if it was enhanced. Then you find out, is that Nolan at 4:50 and the boat has left? You enhance that audio we keep playing. You find out if they're saying, Nolan's dead. I don't know if that's real or not, but I can find out if it's real. So for you, a trial lawyer like yourself, in your own words, won most of them, evidence is not handed to you, Mobley, on a silver platter, on top of a Christmas tree. You have to find it. You have to investigate it. And that is the point of this timeline from the Cajun Navy. They're giving us a plethora, a cornucopia of evidence for us to start with. What? Don't waste another.
And gaps are where cross-examination lives. Because here's what the defense forced into the record, piece by piece: a stain on the interior window sill. Never confirmed as blood in a way that could withstand scrutiny.
That's something. We're not getting anything from the government. We don't have the autopsy. We don't have any information. Nothing. They've gone radio silent.
It's exceptionally helpful to have these things laid out in this way with coordinates and times and pulling in some of the relevant social media information while also noting that it hasn't been verified. It's giving us, I think, the most comprehensive timeline that we could possibly have. I mean, not to push back, because I feel like you push back so much on that poor man, but the rabbit hole is the internet. The rabbit hole is reading every single person's theory. This is concrete information, and when it's not concrete, it says this hasn't been verified. This is at least giving me, from an investigative standpoint as a journalist, somewhere to focus my efforts, to focus my search.
A stain directly beneath the window, visible in photographs from the very first night, never swabbed at all, because investigators believed they already had enough samples from a single bleeder in that area.
Katie had a convo, assumed Nolan was getting ready to get on the boat he came out in. Katie made it home on another boat. Katie assumed the friends telling him, get on, wouldn't have left without him. Okay, so he says, I'm going back with my friends. She thinks he got on the boat. The mystery girl Wells reportedly stayed behind to speak with has been identified. Now, at the get-go, we were told no one knew who she was. He had never met her before. He had just met her.
A stain further down the exterior, sitting for 5 months before anyone circled back to it. One test skipped here. One test delayed there.
Whenever I see a conflict in the evidence, I have a problem. This is all unfolding as we go to air tonight.
Each decision reasonable in isolation. Together, they added up to something much harder to defend: a timeline with holes in it, presented to a jury as if it were whole. Untested is not the same as unimportant. Say that again. Untested is not the same as unimportant.
Down a rabbit hole. It takes you down a rabbit hole of information that may not be reliable. The best thing to do is to talk to
Man, who was paying you? Because it ain't me. We don't pay guests. Rabbit hole, my rear end. Objection, my rear end. a rabbit hole. That's like you get a list of witnesses and go, yeah, I don't have their addresses. Screw it. You have to find them. You have to find the people that took these pictures. You have to find the people that were on those boats after you ID the boats. Then you have to take them one by one and interview. You know what?
Because a stain nobody swabs doesn't disappear from the case. It just becomes a question mark the jury has to answer without data. Now here's where the timeline gets genuinely dangerous for the prosecution's version of events. The defense's theory wasn't that the blood didn't exist. It was that the blood could mean something entirely different than what the state wanted it to mean. A transfer stain, the chemist's own term for what she found, simply means a bloody object touched a surface and left a mark. It says nothing about direction, nothing about force, nothing about intent. It doesn't tell you if someone climbed out a window and leaned against a ledge, or if someone hung from that ledge in desperation, dragging an already wounded body down the side of a house. The chemist herself conceded that a smear running the full length of the shingles, consistent with a body sliding down the exterior, would look different from an isolated transfer stain.
Rule it out.
Okay,
Rule it
so
out.
is this Nolan? If it is Nolan, this is at 4:50 and proves he's still on the island when the other boat, the Triton, leaves. I don't think this is Nolan.
And she couldn't rule that scenario out. Not because the evidence disproved it, because the evidence was never fully collected to test it in the first place. So ask yourself this: if the very stains that could have settled the argument were left on a rooftop through an entire New England winter, what exactly is the jury being asked to convict or acquit on? A theory or a gap? That's the ticking clock at the center of this trial. 12 people sitting in a room trying to reconstruct the final seconds before a body went through a window, using evidence that was allowed to decay in the open air for 5 months before anyone treated it like it mattered. The chemist did not deny any of this.
The truth, aside from all the noise and the threats, the falsities, the enhancements, the alterations, the truth is there, and we will find it.
That's what makes her testimony so useful to both sides. She agreed, without hesitation, that weather degrades blood evidence over time. She agreed that a confirmatory test was never run on some of the most visually significant stains in the entire case. She agreed that she could not rule out an alternate physical explanation for what the shingles showed.
But there are ways to, contrary to what Mobley just blurted out, there are ways to find these witnesses and nail them down. If that photo is Nolan Wells, and it doesn't look like Nolan to me, then he's on the island at 7 p.m.
This wasn't a witness caught in a lie. This was a witness caught in the limits of what forensic science can actually promise a jury, which is often far less certainty than true crime coverage likes to pretend. Untested is not the same as unimportant. That's the second time. Hold on to it, because it's about to matter again. What the defense accomplished in that cross-examination wasn't a knockout blow. It was something quieter, and in a case this close, potentially more powerful. Reasonable doubt built not on a counter theory, but on absence of confirmatory testing.
Search for justice when we're entertaining every single person who posts every single theory, even when it makes no sense. And I have to bring my friend out of probation and say that you can't, go according to every single piece of information you get. It has to make sense to warrant the investigators taking time to investigate. And the fact that they're not sharing with us.
Absence of a swab from a stain photographed on day one. Absence of a direction of travel analysis that could have distinguished a lean from a fall from a controlled descent down the side of a house. In a case where the burden of proof sits entirely on the prosecution, absence isn't a footnote. It's ammunition. And that brings us back to the image we opened with. That trail of dark, degraded staining on a rooftop, sitting for 5 months while the case around it moved forward without it. Untested is not the same as unimportant. Third time.
We wait for that toxicology report. We wait for the autopsy to be revealed. We wait for a witness list to be produced. At this hour, reports a grand jury is convening.
Because that's the sentence this jury will have to sit with when they go back into that room how much of what they think they know is actually confirmed, and how much of it is simply what nobody got around to disproving. If you want to look at this yourself, the underlying forensic testimony and evidence markings referenced in this case are part of the public court record for this trial, filed with the relevant Massachusetts trial court and available through standard public docket access. Pull the exhibit list. Look at what was tested and what wasn't. Then answer this in the comments when investigators leave evidence exposed for months before deciding it's worth testing. Who bears the cost of that decision? The defense, the prosecution, or the truth itself? If this breakdown helped you see the case differently, like this video, share it with someone who's been following the trial, and subscribe to Shadow Jury Archives with notifications on, because we'll be back inside the courtroom with the next moment that matters.